Come on into the ditch. I'm your resident ditch witch, Tara Tyne, and this week we are doing something a little bit different. So I've been taking a bit of a break from starting new projects. I've been catching up on projects that I had sitting to the side, some of my documentary making, and planning for the years to come here on our grand renovation project on our Derelict cottage. So I've got a whole playlist of videos that you can watch if you want to catch up on what's been happening here at my house, but needless to say, there were some unexpectedly urgent renovations needed to be done when we realised we were going to have to move into the house a lot sooner than we had initially planned for. And this is where I'm filming from now. This is the room that I spend most of my time in when the weather's bad, which is most of the time. But now that the days are starting to get a little bit longer, a little bit brighter, we're getting outside again, we're starting to make real solid plans for what it is that we want to do with this property that we've bought, that we hope will be our forever home. And any of you creative types watching will understand what I say when I say a creative brain requires boredom. So we've been flat out working on all kinds of projects now for essentially the last few years, and we sort of need like a mental palate cleanser before we can really envision what it is that we want to do with this space that we want to live in. And what I tend to do when I'm dialing it back a bit on the work, when I'm between projects or trying to slow down for a while to prevent that old burnout, I like to bust out my copy of Sims 3. Anyone watching who doesn't know about Sims 3, it's a computer game where you can create people, you can build a house for them, you can plant a garden, and it's quite difficult to explain what The Sims is. It's basically like an open world kind of thing where you can keep buying add-ons and expansion packs so that they can go spend time on a tropical island if you want, or they can go clubbing, that's a whole thing. But I've decided this time to put my couple of weeks that I'll allow myself to actually play The Sims, because any of you watching who've ever played it know that it is terrifyingly addictive. So a couple of times a year I let myself play it for a couple of weeks, maybe a few weeks, and it gives my brain a little bit of a reset, you know. I can just go live in Fantasyland for a little while, and when I come back I find I tend to feel more refreshed, more creative, more inspired, or at least able to deal with the outside world again. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the screen. I've got my laptop here on my lap, and I am going to share my screen with you, and we're going to do a little walkthrough of what I've done with Sims 3 over the past week. Okay, so you may or may not recognise that as our home. Obviously looking a bit different than it does currently, but that's what we hope it will kind of resemble once it's been renovated. Now, eagle-eyed viewers will know that our current building is closer to that size. But what I have done is imagined how an extension might look, what size it might be, and how we might want to use that extra space. Because between musical instruments and all my sewing accoutrements and various craft stuff, we need quite a lot of space. We're not the tiny home sort of people. So, sorry, this is just, this is a lot to focus on at once. I've never brought people into my Sims game before. Do you like my cute little garden? There's the polo. And yeah, vegetable patch, not looking too healthy at the minute because it is actually autumn time in The Sims. That's why the ground is frozen. Look at, I could have waited till it was summer again so that we're slightly more aesthetic, but you know, we haven't got all week. We have lives. So I've just realised I forgot to take down my Christmas lights from last year, so there's them gone now, right? Front door, please, front door and windows, don't hold me to this, okay? We cannot afford this level of extravagance. What we will put into our house will be much, much simpler, but What I'm trying to do is recreate sort of dimensions, like the inside space in the house, the look of the facade. Sims measurements are not exact to real life. So we're gonna go inside. You can see the floor plan of the sitting room. Okay, let's give you the... Whoa. There's how it might look and feel. Little bit, obviously with less fancy windows. But I've tried to sort of roughly place the size and rough positioning of our fireplace so that we can work around it. We probably won't have an open fire. We'll have a back boiler stove. And we'll also have this space, which currently doesn't exist, and it probably won't be made of stone, but you get the idea. What we are going to need is a hot press, so I think that's maybe where that's going to have to go. Now, you know, it's not going to be anywhere near that big, but you have to factor in the thickness of stone walls as well, because you don't realise, you know, I mean, the Sims aren't building their walls a metre thick. That's just people who have to actually live in Ireland that would think of doing something like that. So we'll probably sort of partition off this little part of the sitting room and put our hot press in there for plumbing reasons and, you know, logistics when it comes to working off the fireplace. It's either going to have to go here or it's going to have to go up in the rafters, and you know, we haven't actually had an engineer in to look at the rafters. They look it to be in pretty good condition, but what do we know, really? We're not engineers. So we don't know if putting that weight up there is an excellent idea, but as I say, this is just a work in progress. So I'm going to show you the rest of the house as it currently stands. We've got our back door there. So it would be very nice. One thing we would like to do is maybe put some glass in the front and back doors, because inside the cottage is currently quite dark. One difference is that you don't really get the impression of in the game here. Wow, I'm just having serious trouble navigating around, sorry. One thing you don't really see out the back here is the overgrowth that we have on the property behind us. So this would be, you know, kind of almost completely blocking out the light. The back of our cottage is quite dark, so putting as much glass in as possible there indoors, and maybe someday in some Velux windows, I think is going to be a plus. And then we've got our mysterious little door into our bedroom. And okay, I'm gonna have to zoom out because it's a little bit close quarters in here. You can't really see what's going on. Okay, so this isn't too far. It's not a million miles away from how our bedroom currently looks. I think I maybe messed up a little bit on the size of the floor space here, so I don't think you'd be able to fit double the length of our bed, but then our bed is bigger than it is here, and I think the room is ever so slightly smaller, again when you allow for the thickness of the stone walls, but roughly speaking, you know, we've got a little bit of space on the far side of a medium-sized rug. So for giving us an idea of how it might look, that's it. Now, the important thing about this, you might notice, is different, is that I have added a walk-in closet out the back of our house. Okay, ladies, you know what I'm talking about. Or fashion-conscious people in general, you know what I'm talking about. You need a space outside of your sleeping space to deal with all of that stuff, especially if you're into presenting yourself publicly for work, or you know, you have a lot of different areas of your life you need various styles and costumes for. That all has to go somewhere. And personally, for me, I dream of a walk-in closet. So I'm hoping that we might be able to construct something in the space between our back wall and the property boundary. I know you have to leave a certain gap of like a metre or a metre and a half. Maybe it's a little bit more. I'm not too sure on the Irish regulations, but I've definitely exaggerated the space out the back here because I didn't really know how much space I was going to need, but I've tried to be as realistic as possible by making this room the same length as the bedroom. And you would hopefully get a little bit more floor space because we probably won't be building metre thick stone walls, but wouldn't it be lovely to have a walk-in closet? So we're probably going to have to consult with an engineer or an architect just to see the viability of building out the back, you know, best materials to use, that sort of thing. And it would also be lovely to have a little ensuite in there, because currently the layout of our house kind of dictates that to go for the many middle of the night peas that I will inevitably need, I will have to go through the sitting room to get to the bathroom, and that's what we're going to look at now, right? So everybody has advised me that the kitchen should go to the back of the house and tell me that I shouldn't mind that it's so dark at the back, that it will make more sense for connecting up to waste pipes, for doing plumbing, all that sort of thing. And I was going along with that to the point where when I built this house a week ago, I put the kitchen to the back of the house. And currently, this is where our actual real life cottage ends. So our kitchen would be this size to begin with, just this far, which is a very reasonable size kitchen for a house this size. Again, I've left a gap here in the middle to try and give the impression of the thickness of a stone wall. So I'm not too sure if I've got the length right in these rooms. I think we should be okay for a bathroom. We might just need to get a little bit creative with the kitchen. But we've got these two lovely sort of twin rooms here. This one, where the kitchen currently is, actually has a fireplace in it, which I did show in the tour video when we first bought our house. And it might be nice to put a stove in there at some point. I mean, wouldn't it be really lovely to heat your bath water off it though, or something, to be able to have a fire in the middle of winter with your lovely bath? Would be so relaxing. So that's why I was trying to picture things like this. I put that to the back because everyone was saying it made more sense. And then just this morning, myself and Dave were having a conversation talking about, yeah, okay, it probably is cheaper and a little bit more practical to put the kitchen to the back of the house, but the view we'd be missing out on from the front of the house is even nicer than that view there. It hasn't got this big stupid house stuck in the way. That's just my neighbours in The Sims. There's nothing we can do about them. But like, rather than having the bathroom to the front of the house, you know, when I'm having a bath, everyone looking in at me, or having to get that sort of frosted glass or embossed glass so that people can't see in. I mean, wouldn't it be really nice to just put your bathroom at the back of the house where people aren't really likely to be? You could easily have a bath in there in a very private, relaxed setting to the back of the house. I mean, you don't really need daylight when you're having a bath anyway, but you do sort of need it in the kitchen. And even though the front of the house is sort of north to northeast facing, or is it northwest? I'm not actually too sure, but because it hasn't got all the overgrowth, it's just got the whole field in front of it, it just gets much better light at the front of the house. So basically, this whole extension that I've imagined here from this wall upwards, you'll have to maybe imagine that flipped in reverse. That might be what we end up going for. But what I've also done, it was actually quite tricky to fit all the things that I wanted to fit into this extension, and whilst trying to keep it as small and practical as possible. Again, a fabulous archway I probably can't afford, but look, it's The Sims. I can do what I like, okay? I made 100,000 simoleons of collecting wildflowers. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. So I've made a little hallway here, a little connecting hallway, and a guest bedroom. It might only prove to be a box room, or we might put a sofa bed in there maybe, so we have a little bit more space when we have two visitors coming to stay. But so the people in the guest room can get through to our bathroom, which is probably going to need a second door knocked into it when we do get as far as extending, which by the way is going to be years down the line. But we need to understand like where we're going to put doors, which walls we might consider knocking, which way the bath needs to be facing, because you don't want to have it in and then have to move it again. It can be a very expensive and inconvenient job to have to do, or so I've heard. And then on the other side of this little hallway, you see the other thing I want to access is a pantry of some sort. For storing dried foods, things you don't use all the time, for drying foods that we've foraged, and possibly also a place to store the thousands of glass jars I intend to collect. And at the back, I've got a little utility room with a back door, sort of a side door, gable entrance door, so that we can get out to maybe a washing line or a patio area, something like that. And this just allows us to have a larger, sort of dedicated dining room, even though it's open plan, but it's nice to be able to cook and entertain at the same time. And that's time that myself and Dave would like to be able to spend together, but our life is really sort of disjointed right now. And again, here when, you know, we've got a tiny little kitchen that's just like this size, we are probably going to want to put our dining table here, which will be fine for the foreseeable future. It's just trying to imagine what I might be able to do with the space sort of further down the line. There's myself and Dave having our breakfast. Look, I'm eating something called key lime pie for breakfast. This is something that Sims love to make. I presume it's an American dessert. I've never tasted it, but I love limes and I love pies. So I'd love to know what that's like actually. Is it anything like lemon meringue pie? Tell me in the comments, I need to know. And that's Dave having his hot chocolate or his morning coffee. The windows are all frosted up because it's so cold outside. And look, Dave has his wellies on there as well. Look at him. I have to say, I think that's quite accurate portrayal of Dave there. I'm not so sure about me. I'm a little bit too tidy and put together looking for how I actually look in real life. And also, I don't know if we'd be able to afford these gigantic windows, you know? I mean, we're going to be visiting salvage yards and that kind of thing, you know. I don't know if this is a realistic prospect. But, you know, this was kind of, I put these in because building at the back of the house, you're going to want as much light as possible. And so I just went all out and I said, well, here's what it would look if we had the view to the back and the front, which would be very nice and private and serene and lovely. But again, if we put it to the front of the house, we mightn't need such big windows. So I think that's kind of it for the main house. I also have the outbuilding that we're kind of just uncovering at the minute. I haven't done anything with it because Dave literally only started digging it out today. Tune into next week's video to see more of that. And we've got this one which comes perilously close to our house. I think I've done a pretty good job of portraying the gap between the two and the angle. But I have definitely made this wider than it actually is in real life, especially on the floor plan on the inside. And that's mainly because I wanted to put this gigantic fish tank in. Okay, so I needed to extend the building to fit it. We won't be doing that in real life, obviously. It was just a really cool item that I'd gotten with an add-on pack for The Sims that I'd never seen before, and I was dying to try it out. So I made this building a little bit wider, stuck it in there, and can you guess what this is? It is a recording studio. So we may or may not even have a glass wall there. We might not, because glass walls are expensive. But once we have somewhere for musicians to perform, enough room for an instrument or two to be played at a time, I've packed them all in there because of my fantastically large outbuilding. This was the one I really let myself go wild in. And yeah, you've got, you know, got the drum kit, Dave's selection of guitars and mine there at the end. Double bass. Wait till I see if I can get the lights turned on and show you how cool it looks. Roughly how my recording studio, my fantasy recording studio looks in my head. It's probably much tidier and less full of equipment than Dave's fantasy studio would be, but because we use it for work too, it's important for us to have a space to do that. So we are thinking that maybe one of the outbuildings, if they can be made suitable for that kind of activity, it might be nice in the long run to look at turning one of those into a recording studio that's kind of separate from the house. Because it's nice to be able to, after a long day or a long weekend of working on something, to just kind of close the door behind you, leave all the equipment there untouched, and you know it's not going to be disturbed before you have to go back in and do it again. When you do that, then it's all just sitting ready, set up, waiting to go. Whereas when you try to record inside your house, which is currently what we're doing now with both our audio recording and my YouTube channel, the equipment has to be set up from scratch every time, and it's not only inefficient, but it's tedious. I'm not gonna lie. I had just created a YouTube studio for myself in my last house when I got noticed to move out, and I'm sure a lot of you know what that feels like. So out here in what is currently our woodshed, right, which in real life is actually a lot closer to this outbuilding here. But look, I said it's not accurate. I am not an architect. I don't really know what I'm doing. I just love playing Sims. So I think I got the size roughly accurate. Here I've turned it into a bar, because that just kind of felt right for my Sims family. And you know, I can see us during the summer, like myself and Dave aren't big drinkers, but I can see us lighting a campfire and having a couple of cocktails, and it would be nice to have a place to store all those random, you know, syrups and liqueurs that people gift you that you will definitely eventually use to make some tasty beverage or other, but they just mightn't be used immediately. So that's what we've done. That is all the outbuildings. And I mean, mainly for now, my main goal is to have a path out the front, because, you know, I mean, look how tidy and clean and manicured that is. Now, I obviously don't want to manicure our entire site, but I do dream of having a lovely paved pathway like that. Maybe, you know, large slabs, nice and clean. Anyway, I don't know if you enjoyed this or not. This was a bit of a risk of a video, but sometimes your real life and your online presence, your social media life, have to collide, because there's just no two ways about it. And honestly, this is what I've been doing in Sims. I've been trying to plan our renovation project using a video game. I mean, it is just a less technical version of something like CAD. Probably, I don't know. I've never even seen CAD. But it has definitely given us some food for thought, and after looking at my version of our house and my attempt to add an extension of probably about 33% of our existing house there, maybe a little bit more, Dave decided that we should put the kitchen at the front, where I initially really wanted it to go. So that's something we have kind of decided off the back of this silly video game. So yeah, thoughts? Put them in the comment section. Any architects or interior designers watching, I know there's one or two. Any builders, any stonemasons, share your criticisms please. I'm here for it. I'm ready and waiting to catch them with both hands. These are my grateful hands. Thank you for any tips or tricks you think we need to be considering at this stage in the process. Like I say, it's going to be years before we actually think about extending our house, mainly because we don't have the money to do it. And we're not going to have the money to do it for the foreseeable future. So we are just working on renovating the main house at the minute and what we have. And actually we could probably live in a 4-room cottage for quite a long time, fairly comfortably. It's just, we do have, you know, a lot of music equipment and all that kind of thing, and trying to think about where that is all going to go in the long run, because at the end of the day, your home has to accommodate you, not the other way around. So on that note, hit subscribe for more fun and property adventures if you'd like to see how we get on in real life with our renovation. Then you're gonna have to stay tuned. Welcome to all the new subscribers who have landed over the last few weeks. I hope you're enjoying your stay so far, and I hope you'll stick around and have some crack with us. I upload most Thursdays and you're not gonna want to miss it. Slán agus beannacht, goodbye and good luck to you.
Woo!